The supermarket, my granddaughter whispered. Grandma, that's not Mom. I looked where she pointed, and indeed, it was my daughter-in-law, but she was supposed to be away on a business trip. As I was about to approach her, a familiar-looking man walked up and embraced her. But before we continue, please check if you've subscribed to the channel and share in the comments where you're watching us from. We'd love to know how far our tales of vengeance travel. That Saturday afternoon began like any other, quietly. The scent of freshly baked cookies still lingered in the kitchen, and I was wiping the last flour crumbs from the table when Lily, my 5-year-old granddaughter, came rushing in. Her round eyes looked up at me, and with a voice clear as wind chimes, she said, "Grandma, can we go to the store? I want star-shaped cereal." Seeing her angelic face, how could I say no? I smiled, wiped my hands on my apron, and bent down to put on her bright pink coat, her favorite. Hand in hand, we walked casually to the supermarket a few blocks from home. The sound of Lily's little shoes tapping the sidewalk, mixed with her chirpy voice, filled my heart with simple, warm happiness. We quickly found the box of star-shaped cereal. Lily hugged it like a treasure. As we passed the home goods aisle, my eyes caught a new set of non-stick pans on sale. I'd been wanting to replace the old ones at home for a while. They were starting to peel, and food stuck easily. I stopped the cart and began examining the pans, comparing prices and materials, completely absorbed by the small, everyday decisions of a homemaker. In the middle of my concentration, Lily's little voice suddenly fell silent. Then I felt a tiny hand gently tugging my sleeve. She stretched up and whispered in my ear with a voice that, unbeknownst to me at that moment, would ignite a storm. "Grandma, that's not my Mom." I lifted my head. I followed the direction of my granddaughter's finger through the gaps in the gleaming crystal cups on display. And then I saw her, in the imported wines section, among expensive bottles, the unmistakable silhouette of Cassandra. My daughter-in-law wore a beautiful emerald green silk dress that fit her figure perfectly. I had never seen that dress before. A shiver ran down my spine despite the warm supermarket environment. Wasn't Cassandra supposed to be in Dallas? She herself told us she had an important business trip and wouldn't return until tomorrow night, at the earliest. So why was she here? For a moment, I thought about calling her, but my voice caught in my throat when a man whose figure seemed too familiar appeared from behind and embraced Cassandra around the waist. That distinguished silver hair, that firm posture. It was Robert, my husband, the man with whom I'd shared over 40 years of my life. Cassandra smiled, a radiant smile, leaning her head on his shoulder and hugging him back. Robert leaned in and whispered something in her ear, which made them both laugh at the same time. Their laughter mingled in a melody that should have sounded joyful but squeezed my chest in a strange way. Still, a flicker of hope, a fragile excuse, crossed my mind. It's almost Christmas. Maybe they're buying a surprise gift for me and Michael, my son. I remembered last year they even faked a scandalous argument just to throw me off, and then secretly organized a surprise birthday party. Of course, I'm sure it's the same this time. Unconsciously, I managed a smile, a mocking smile at my own absurd mistrust. Just then, Lily was struggling, trying to get out of the cart to run to her parents. I quickly stopped her. I put a finger to my lips as a sign for silence. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, trying to turn my confusion into a game. "We're playing spies. We're going to secretly watch Daddy and Mommy to see what they're doing." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. She nodded enthusiastically and sat quietly in the cart. I took a deep breath and pushed the cart down another aisle, keeping a safe distance so I could observe them. But they didn't head towards the checkout. They went straight to the luxury mall section connected to the supermarket. My heart started beating a little faster. I left the cart with the cereal box and some loose items in a secluded corner. I picked Lily up in my arms and followed them silently. They entered the Emerald, a luxurious jewelry store that I usually only dared to admire from the outside. The bright lights inside made the diamond and precious stone jewelry sparkle dazzlingly. I hid behind a large marble column, pretending to check my phone while keeping my eyes glued to them. An elegantly dressed employee greeted them with a smile, as if they were distinguished clients. I saw Cassandra point to a diamond necklace inside a display case. I felt a spark of warmth in my heart. I hadn't thought she would be so generous, choosing such a luxurious gift for me. The employee carefully took out the necklace, and when she placed it around Cassandra's slender neck, Cassandra smiled at Robert and said sweetly, "Daddy spoils his daughter too much." And then I heard Robert's laugh. A loud, proud chuckle, like I had never heard from him before. His voice resonated clearly enough that, from where I stood, I could hear every word. "No, she's my wife. Bring her the most expensive things for my wife to choose from." Those 2 words were like 2 hammer blows directly to my head. My ears rang. The world reeled. I had to lean heavily on the cold column to keep from falling. Sweet words and generous gestures like that, in 40 years, he never had them for me. Every time we went shopping, he only told me I should save money. Never, not once, did he introduce me with that voice full of pride. While Cassandra continued to gaze at herself in the mirror, trying on another pair of earrings, I pulled out my phone with trembling hands, trying not to let it show. I raised the phone and quickly took a picture. Click. That small sound echoed like thunder. The image perfectly captured the moment Robert looked at Cassandra with eyes full of desire, and she smiled contentedly with the sparkling necklace hanging from her neck. It was the proof of a truth I still didn't dare to name. When it seemed they had chosen and were about to leave, I couldn't stay there for another second. I quickly picked up Lily. I hugged her tightly against my chest. My voice came out choked, dry. "Lily, the game is over. We have to go home now." The cold air outside the mall hit my face as I walked out. I didn't dare to look back. I just lowered my head and ran to the curb, desperately raising my hand to any taxi that appeared in my field of vision. Lily buried her head in my shoulder, perhaps sensing the unease in every accelerated beat of my heart. Luckily, a yellow cab appeared and stopped just as I slammed the door shut with Lily and all the chaos inside me. Robert's black sedan was also exiting the underground parking lot, and relentless force, a chilling determination I never knew I possessed, took hold of me. I couldn't go home. I couldn't pretend nothing had happened. I had to know. I had to know how far this lie went. I pointed to the car. My voice sounded strange, urgent but firm. "Please follow that car. Keep a safe distance. Don't let them see us." The taxi driver, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, looked at me in the rearview mirror, clearly uncomfortable. Perhaps he was already used to scenes like this. He didn't ask anything. He just nodded slightly and merged into the traffic flow. Robert's car did not take the road to our house, where dinner awaited us. Nor did it turn onto the street of Olivia's neighborhood, my eldest daughter. It headed towards an area completely unknown to me, a suspiciously quiet place I'd only heard mentioned, famous for its discreet hotels where secrets were bought and sold by the hour. I felt something inside me sink. Every meter the car advanced was like another stab into the already broken trust I had left. Finally, the car stopped in front of a hotel called the Secret Haven. The name seemed a cruel mockery of my situation. Immediately, a uniformed doorman came out. He opened the door for Cassandra. He greeted them with a noticeably respectful bow, as if they were regular customers. They walked arm in arm. Cassandra leaned her head on Robert's shoulder. They looked like a couple enjoying a romantic date. They entered through the heavy wooden door, disappearing inside, leaving me alone with a world that had just collapsed. "Stop on the other side of the street, please," I told the driver in a hoarse voice. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum, announcing an unequal war. With trembling hands, I raised my phone once more, trying to keep it steady. I zoomed in as much as possible to take a photo of them entering the hotel. The image was blurry, but it was irrefutable proof. I turned to Lily, who was still looking on, not understanding. I hugged her tightly, inhaling the scent of her hair to calm myself. I leaned close to my granddaughter's ear, trying to make my voice sound as gentle as possible, as if we were still playing spies. "Lily, promise Grandma that what we saw today will be a secret, just between you and me. Okay? Don't tell anyone. Not even Daddy Michael." The girl nodded, with those big eyes that still didn't comprehend the darkness of this story. For her, being a spy meant keeping secrets, but that innocent promise felt like a heavy burden on my soul. On the way back home, I remained silent. The taxi passed by the park where Robert and I used to push Michael in his stroller. The memories flooded back like a form of torture. I clearly recalled those windy afternoons when Robert would point at the playing children and tell me that one day our Michael would also be that tall and strong. All those memories now shattered, like sharp glass shards piercing my chest. The happy home I had spent my entire life building turned out to be founded on lies. Upon arriving home, I saw Michael agitated by the door. As soon as he saw us, he ran towards us with a worried look. "Where have you been, Mom?" I called Cassandra many times, but she didn't answer. The signal in Dallas must not be good. My son's words were like the final stab directly to my heart. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat and, with great effort, kept my voice serene while inventing a clumsy excuse about the crowded supermarket and heavy traffic. An hour later, the door opened again. Robert returned home. He walked in, whistling a cheerful tune with the evening newspaper in his hand, and asked, with complete casualness, "What's for dinner, my love?" I didn't answer. I just turned around silently and walked to the kitchen. The culminating scene arrived near midnight. Another taxi stopped in front of the house. Cassandra got out with a suitcase. She looked tired, but still forced a radiant smile, as if she had truly just returned from a long flight from Dallas. Michael, my poor son, rushed out to hug her joyfully and hurried to carry her suitcase. "You're back!" Was the trip very hard? Cassandra snuggled into his shoulder, complaining a little about tense meetings and difficult clients. From the doorway, Robert watched the scene with a smile. He turned to me, his wife, whom he had betrayed only a few hours earlier, and said proudly, "Look what a lovely couple they make, don't you think?" I couldn't bear it anymore. A knot of nausea rose from the depths of my stomach. It was a repulsion that went beyond the body. It was from the soul. I couldn't say anything. I just mumbled an apology. I turned and ran to the bathroom. I slammed the door shut and dry heaved. I sank to my knees on the cold tiles, my stomach empty, only that bitterness and humiliation overflowing inside me. Soft knocks on the door, followed by Michael's worried voice. "Mom? Are you okay? Do you want me to bring you some ginger ale?" My heart ached for him. He still knew nothing. He lived in the illusion of a happy family, of a devoted wife. I couldn't let him see me like this. I took a deep breath, tried to control my ragged breathing, and replied in the weakest voice I could manage. "I'm fine, son. Must be something I ate at the supermarket that upset my stomach. Go on, take care of Cassandra. She must be tired from her trip." "Yes, Mom. Get some rest." I heard his footsteps fading away. I forced myself to stand up. I leaned on the sink and looked in the mirror. Who was that woman staring back at me? Swollen, red eyes, a distraught face, hair a mess. That wasn't Margaret, the strong woman who had always been the pillar of the family. That was a shattered woman. I turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on my face several times. The icy cold helped me stay calm, forcing back the tears that wanted to fall. I couldn't break down, at least. Not yet. When I came out, the scene was already carefully set. Cassandra had put her suitcases in the bedroom. She was smiling as she pulled gifts one by one from a practically empty suitcase. A box of typical Dallas sweets for Lily, who squealed with excitement. A top-shelf bottle of bourbon for Robert, who nodded with satisfaction. And finally, she approached me. She extended a dark blue silk scarf, elegant and refined. "Mom, I brought you a little something. I passed by a store and thought it was perfect for you, so I bought it." I reached out to receive it. My fingers trembled slightly as I touched the smooth silk, though the sensation was like stroking an icy snake. I forced a strained smile and replied in a dry voice, "Thank you. It wasn't necessary, especially with how tired you are from your trip." During the late dinner, the kitchen, which used to be the warmest place in the house, became a stage charged with tension. Cassandra was the lead actress. She talked endlessly about her business trip, how stressful the meetings were, how demanding the clients were, how she had to stay up late preparing the presentation, and how she managed to sign an important contract. Every lie was so well crafted that it left no loose ends. Robert, playing the ideal father-in-law, sat beside her, nodding occasionally, refilling her water glass, and saying things like, "That was tough for you," or "Michael should appreciate his wife more." Every word of his was like a stab in my open wound, and Michael, my poor son, looked at her with admiration and tenderness. He kept putting food on her plate, encouraging her to eat a little more to regain her strength. I remained seated, silent as a statue. The hot soup in front of me had cooled without me noticing. I stirred the spoon in the bowl just to make noise, concealing the emptiness inside me. I couldn't swallow anything. The aroma of the food, instead of whetting my appetite, churned my stomach. In the middle of Cassandra's impeccable monologue, Lily, with her usual innocence, posed a question that, though innocent, was like a ticking time bomb. "Mommy, why was your suitcase so light this time? Last time you brought lots of things and gifts for me." The atmosphere at the table froze. For an instant, I saw a spark of panic cross Cassandra's eyes. Robert cleared his throat slightly, but she, worthy of a seasoned actress, let out a natural, almost chilling laugh and stroked Lily's head. "Silly girl. It's just that this time the partner company already had all the documents ready there, so I didn't have to carry so many things. I just needed to bring my smart brain." She pointed to her forehead and winked at Michael. My son also smiled, completely convinced. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside the man with whom I had shared over 40 years of my life, but who now seemed like a complete stranger. The distance between us wasn't a few inches on the mattress, but an abyss of lies. I clearly heard his calm breathing and just wanted to scream, shake him, and demand answers. But I didn't. The initial rage had vanished, only a terrifying cold remained. I waited. I waited until Robert's snores became deeper and more rhythmic. Sure that he was asleep, I carefully got up, making sure not to make any noise. I crept downstairs to the kitchen, phone clutched in my hand as if it were my only weapon. I didn't dare to speak inside the house. I feared even the walls had ears. I quietly closed the back door and went out into the small garden, where the cold night air made me shiver. I dialed Olivia's number. The phone rang twice, and she answered with a sleepy voice. "Mom? What's wrong? Why are you calling at this hour?" Hearing my daughter's voice, the dam I had built all night suddenly collapsed. I couldn't hold back anymore. My voice broke into uncontrollable sobs. "Olivia, my daughter." I whispered everything in choked, tearful gasps. I told her about what Lily said, about the jewelry store, the secret haven hotel, and finally, the theater of false reconciliation I had just witnessed hours earlier. On the other end of the line, silence enveloped everything. I could hear my daughter's breathing grow heavier. Then I heard the grinding of her teeth as she clenched them. "I'm coming over right now. I'm going to drag that woman out of our house and give that old man what he deserves." My daughter's impulsive reaction jolted me. I stopped her immediately, pleadingly. "No, Olivia, not now. It's not the right time yet. We don't have enough proof for Michael to believe us. You know how your brother is. He's blind with love for Cassandra. If we make a scene now, they'll deny everything and become more careful. We'll never manage to unmask them." I convinced her that we needed a plan, irrefutable proof, evidence that would force Michael to open his eyes. After a tense silence, Olivia finally spoke. Her voice was no longer agitated. Now it sounded cold and determined. "You're right, Mom. We need a plan. You stay calm. Act like you don't know anything. I'll take care of it tomorrow. I swear I won't let them rest." I woke up before dawn, though I felt like I hadn't slept a wink all night. As I shuffled downstairs to the kitchen to make myself a strong cup of coffee, Robert was already there, as usual, reading the morning paper. Seeing me, he looked up and narrowed his eyes with feigned concern. "Didn't you sleep well last night? You look very tired." His words were like a thorn in my ears. I had to cling to the edge of the counter to keep from trembling. "Must be old age insomnia," I replied in a voice so flat it was chilling, and turned away so he wouldn't see my swollen eyes. I poured myself a cup of black coffee, no sugar. The bitter taste helped clear my head, reminding me of the bitterness of the truth. At noon, as I soullessly cleaned vegetables in the kitchen, my phone vibrated gently. It was Olivia. I quickly dried my hands, went into the pantry, and closed the door. Her voice on the other end of the line was no longer agitated as last night. She spoke with chilling calm and clarity. "Mom, I asked a friend who works at a law firm. He recommended someone specializing in delicate matters like this. His name is David Miller." A small ray of hope pierced through the dense fog of despair. "Delicate?" I asked. "Yes, Mom," Olivia replied. "He's the one who will uncover the truth for us. Can you meet me today at 2 p.m. at the Shadow Coffee Shop in the San Angel area? It's a discreet place. We won't run into anyone we know." My heart started beating faster. This was the first step. "Okay," I'll be there. To be able to leave the house at that hour, I had to lie. I went to find Michael, who was absorbed in front of the computer, trying to finish a project. Seeing his thin back and concentrated face, my heart clenched. Michael, son, I have a meeting at the church women's club. I'll probably be back late this afternoon. He turned and smiled at me, a warm smile full of trust. Yes, Mom. Take care. Every lie was like a stab I inflicted upon myself. I, who had always taught my children to live with honesty, now found myself forced into a world of secrets and deception. But I knew this lie was necessary to protect my son from a truth 1,000 times crueler. I arrived at the Shadow coffee shop 15 minutes before the agreed time. The place was hidden in a little trafficked alley. The interior was quite dark, and there were only a few scattered customers. I chose a table in the most secluded corner and ordered chamomile tea to calm my nerves, which were as taut as a string. A few minutes later, Olivia entered, accompanied by a man. He was about 40, average build. He wore a simple shirt and dark pants. If I had seen him on the street, I would have thought he was an office worker, an accountant, or a teacher, not someone dedicated to what I was imagining. He wore no leather jacket or mysterious face, nothing to draw attention. Olivia introduced him in a low voice. Mom, this is Mr. David Miller. He barely nodded to greet me, without a polite smile. But his gaze was different, penetrating, fixed on me, but not with distrust. Only a calm radiated from him that, strangely, made me feel a little safer. We sat down for a moment. Silence enveloped us. Only the sound of the coffee machine at the bar was audible. I took a deep, trembling breath, pulled out my phone, and showed him the photo I had taken at the jewelry store. David took the phone and looked at the image for a long time. He showed no emotion, no surprise, no compassion. His face was like a doctor observing an X-ray, completely focused on the details. After a while, he put the phone on the table and spoke in a deep, measured voice. What are the full names of these two people? I replied, my voice still trembling, giving him Robert's car license plate. Any unusual daily routines you've noticed lately? And then I told him the whole story once more, from Lily's whisper to the false scene of the previous night. David didn't interrupt me once. He just listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes fixed on me. His serenity was like a sedative. It allowed me to let everything out without feeling like I was being dramatic. When I finished, he remained silent for a few seconds, as if organizing all the information in his head. Then he looked directly into my eyes, and this time I saw determination in his gaze. Ma'am, to get irrefutable proof, I'm going to need your help. I froze. My help? That's right, he said. I need you to give me access to your husband's car for about 10 minutes, alone and without anyone noticing. I went cold, but soon understood. He needed to install something, a tracker, a microphone. The idea scared me, but it also ignited a fierce resolve within me. I had come too far. I couldn't turn back. The meeting ended quickly. Before leaving, David left a card on the table. This is my number. Contact me only if absolutely necessary. For now, as your daughter said, act like you don't know anything. Be a normal wife, a normal mother-in-law. I'll take care of the rest. Then he stood up, nodded to me one last time, and disappeared into the shadows of the alley as quickly as he had appeared. I remained seated, looking at that small card on the table. It wasn't just a series of numbers. It was a promise, a pact. The play set within my own house had to continue, and my role was now more difficult than ever. 2 days after the meeting with David, I lived like an actress on the stage of my own life. Every meal was a scene, every greeting, a precisely calculated line of dialogue. I had to smile when Robert told a tasteless joke. I had to nod when Cassandra boasted of a non-existent achievement at work. The house that was once my refuge had become a suffocating cage. I waited with the patience of a predator for the perfect moment, and that moment arrived on Thursday morning. During breakfast, I stirred my coffee on purpose, very slowly, and as if it were a casual comment, I mentioned Aunt Carol, my older cousin, who lived in a town an hour from here. Aunt Carol called me last night, I said, my gaze fixed on my coffee to hide my nervousness. She's not well. She keeps coughing. She said she misses the kids and wants me to visit her this weekend. Every word was a carefully crafted lie. Aunt Carol was perfectly fine and hadn't called me. Just as I anticipated, Robert frowned upon hearing that name. He had never liked my cousin, who talked a lot and always had an opinion on everything. "Ugh, her again," he muttered, turning the page of the newspaper forcefully. "You go alone. This weekend I have a golf game with the guys. Just thinking about her complaints gives me a headache." An icy shiver ran down my spine. That was exactly what I had hoped for. I nodded slightly, feigning a touch of sadness. "Okay, I'll go alone then." Right after breakfast, when no one was paying attention, I went to my room and sent Olivia a message we had already agreed upon. A completely innocent phrase, but one that said it all. "I'm baking bread this weekend." Seconds later, Olivia replied, "That's great, Mom. I'll be waiting." I knew she understood the message and would immediately inform David. The trap was beginning to close. Saturday morning, I got ready to leave. I walked back and forth in the living room on purpose, making noise so Robert would know I was almost gone. He was in the bathroom. The sound of running water gave me the perfect cover. It was my only chance. His keyring was in the same ceramic bowl as always on the cabinet next to the door. That's where he left it every time he came home. My heart pounded in my chest. I approached stealthily, lifted the keyring with a trembling hand, and glanced towards the bathroom. The water was still running, drowning out the thumping of my heart. I quickly pulled a small device, identical to a decorative oak leaf keyring, from my coat, which Olivia had given me. It only took me 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like an eternity to remove the old ornament and attach the hidden microphone. The metallic sound echoed like thunder in my ears amidst the silence of the house. I put the keyring back exactly in its place. At that very instant, the water stopped running abruptly. My stomach clenched. I rushed back to the sofa, bent down to put on my shoes, pretending to struggle with the laces. Robert came out with only a towel around his waist, his hair still wet. He looked at me and said, "Have a good trip." "Thanks," I replied, not daring to look up for fear he'd notice the panic in my eyes. "You too. Be safe." I drove my own car out of the driveway, but all my attention was on his car. My hands gripped the steering wheel, soaked with sweat. I followed David's instructions until I reached a solitary street near a small park on the outskirts. I parked, got out of the car, and started walking on the sidewalk, pretending to calmly wait for someone. A man dressed in gray sportswear and a cap that covered almost his entire face ran past me. As he passed Robert's black sedan, which was parked at the curb, he suddenly dropped his water bottle. As he bent down to pick it up, his hand discreetly placed a tiny tracking device under the car. It all happened in a blink, so naturally that if you didn't know beforehand, it would be impossible to notice. That man was David. I calmly returned to my car. I opened all the doors, took out a rag, and started cleaning the interior, just as we had planned. Minutes later, David, now pretending to be a disoriented pedestrian, approached. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice breathless from the supposed effort. "Could you tell me how to get to the nearest subway station?" I straightened up, smiled at him, and began pointing in a distant direction, while all the attention of any potential observer focused on me. With an agile and precise movement, he placed a mini camera in a blind spot near the interior rearview mirror of Robert's car, in a place impossible to detect from the driver's seat. "Thank you very much," he said, and ran off again, disappearing around the corner. The entire process didn't last 10 minutes. I closed my car and drove straight to Aunt Carol's house. I actually spent some time with her to build a perfect alibi and then returned. That night, as I was preparing dinner, Robert came in from the living room with a slightly triumphant expression. He announced, "Tomorrow I have to take Cassandra to meet an important partner out of town. We'll probably be out all day." My heart sank, but not from sadness, rather, from an icy certainty. The play was starting again. The fish had taken the bait. I just nodded silently, asking no questions. "Okay then. I'll pack you something to eat for tomorrow." The next morning, I stood by the kitchen window, watching Robert and Cassandra leave together for the car. Cassandra even turned to wave at me with a radiant smile. I smiled back and returned the gesture. When the black car disappeared at the end of the street, my smile vanished. About 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It simply said 3 words. "The net is cast." On the afternoon of the third day since I received the message, as I was watering the plants in complete silence, I felt my phone vibrate in my apron pocket. It was Olivia. My heart skipped a beat. I ran inside the house, found a discreet corner, and answered. My daughter's voice came through, trying to sound natural, but with a clear hint of tension. "Mom, there's an emergency book club meeting tonight." I understood immediately. It was time. "Oh? Why so sudden, honey?" I replied, maintaining my role. "I'm not sure. I think it's something important. Don't forget to go tonight." That night, I had to lie again. I told Michael that the book club coordinator needed to speak with me urgently. I put on a sweater and left, feeling my son's trusting gaze burn my back. Olivia had called me to an even more secluded coffee shop than the last time, in a dark, nameless alley. She was already there, sitting in the gloomiest corner under the yellowish light. Her face looked pale and tense. She didn't say much, just ordered a glass of water for me and turned her laptop towards my side. "David just sent this. Brace yourself, Mom." She carefully placed the headphones on me so that only I could hear the hell that was about to unfold. I took a deep breath and put them on. The silence of the coffee shop vanished instantly, replaced by the familiar sound of an engine. The video began. The rear-view mirror angle clearly showed the back seat. The scene was a solitary rural road with trees on both sides, probably on their way to see a partner. At first, they just talked nonsense. Robert complained about the recent increase in gas prices. Cassandra grumbled about an unbearable coworker. Then the car radio turned on, tuned to a station that only played old R&B ballads. I felt as if someone was squeezing my heart. That was the station Robert and I used to listen to when the children were small and we went on car trips. That sentimental, romantic melody used to be the soundtrack to our happiness. And then, on the screen, I saw Robert's hand reach back and caress Cassandra's shiny hair. His voice deepened, drenched in a tenderness I never received. "As long as that old hag stays dumb, you'll always be my princess." That old hag, my blood ran cold. After more than 40 years together, I had become that old hag to him. Cassandra let out a giggle, that high-pitched sound that now repulsed me, like broken glass tearing at my ear. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and with a voice sweet as honey but poisonous as deadly syrup, she said, "She still thinks I'm the exemplary daughter-in-law. She doesn't even suspect anything when I tell her I need money for online talent development courses for Lily." My throat closed up. I remembered the times Michael had to work late. He told me he did it so his daughter could have access to the best possible education. And now it turned out that all my son's sacrifices only served to pay for luxuries and finance these two's dirty dates. Then they started kissing. Robert pulled the car over onto a vacant lot at the side of the road, hidden behind some bushes. What happened next forced me to cover my mouth with both hands to keep from screaming. They intertwined right there, in the back seat, without the slightest modesty, without a hint of shame. I shuddered. That seat wasn't just any place. That's where Lily's car seat used to be, where the little girl sang happily every time we returned from an outing. That's also where I placed the grocery bags, still impregnated with the fresh scent of fruits and vegetables, where my family shared so many trips, so many memories. That small family sanctuary was now stained by the worst kind of betrayal. I couldn't keep watching. I ripped off the headphones and pushed the laptop away as if it were a monster. Olivia slammed the laptop shut. She hugged me and asked in a trembling voice, "Mom, are you okay?" But I didn't cry. My tears had dried up long ago. Only an icy rage remained, expanding within me, hardening like ice. I looked at my daughter, and with a voice firmer than ever, without a single hesitation, I said, "We need more. I want everything." Olivia looked at me, perhaps surprised by my calm, and then nodded with an equal determination reflected in her eyes. On the way home, I drove aimlessly. As I passed an old church in the city center, I pulled the car over to the side of the street. I sat in the darkness, looking at the illuminated cross that crowned the bell tower. In other moments of weakness, I would have prayed, but not that night. For the first time in years, I didn't pray. I just sat there, letting the silence clear my mind, letting the fury cool and condense into an iron determination. This battle, I would fight alone. One afternoon, as I was silently picking vegetables in the garden, My phone vibrated again. It was another message from David's unknown number, with only a link and a few words. The Conquistador Restaurant. Noon. My heart pounded. The Conquistador. What an ironic name. I knew it was a product of the recording keyring. I immediately got up and went straight to my room, locking the door. Carefully, I sat on the edge of the bed, connected the headphones, and squeezed my hands until they turned white. I had to listen. I had to know the whole truth, however cruel it might be. The audio file began. First, soft music, the clinking of glasses, and the elegant murmur of a luxury restaurant. Then I heard Robert with that pompous tone he only used when he wanted to impress. A bottle of Opus, one for us. The best, please. My blood boiled. Opus 1. The same expensive wine he always criticized as a waste, throwing money away. In his words, every time Michael wanted to buy a bottle for special celebrations like Christmas or Mother's Day. Then I heard Cassandra's voice, shrill and full of arrogance. She was boasting about a designer handbag she had just bought. Robert let out a sarcastic chuckle with a tone full of insinuation. Another company bonus, my love. Cassandra let out a laugh, one of those shrill, mocking laughs. This time it was a scholarship for Lily. I told Michael that the child needed to take an intensive course for gifted children. He transferred the money immediately, without asking a single question. I had to cover my mouth with my hand to keep from letting out a choked sob. I remembered perfectly the night before, when Michael had been up late reviewing accounts. He complained to me that lately they were spending too much, that he had to take on extra projects to secure his daughter's future so she wouldn't feel less than her classmates. My son was working his fingers to the bone, sacrificing his moments of rest to maintain the luxuries and lies of the woman he loved most. The conversation continued. I heard the waiter approach to take their order. Cassandra chose the most expensive dishes on the menu. Lobster with garlic butter, prime beef fillet. When the waiter politely asked how they wished to pay, she replied with complete casualness, "Charge it to this card, please." There was a brief pause, and then Robert intervened. What he said completely froze my heart, killing any trace of conjugal affection I still had. His voice sounded condescending, like someone dispensing favors. "Don't worry, my love. That idiot works like a dog just for us to enjoy. That idiot, to call his own son that, his own flesh and blood, with such a low insult, just to look good in front of another woman." I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the cell phone onto the bed as if it were a venomous snake. I no longer felt pain. I was dead inside, cold as a stone. There were no tears, no tremors, only a thick rage and an icy determination. That night, Michael returned home with a tired face, but a sparkle of happiness in his eyes. He announced excitedly that he had received a small bonus for an extra project. "This weekend I want to invite everyone to celebrate," he said with a radiant smile. Cassandra immediately clapped and ran to hug him enthusiastically. "You're amazing, love. How about we go to the Conquistador? My friends say the food is delicious and the place is super elegant." I was in the kitchen with a paring knife in my hand. Hearing the name the Conquistador come out of her mouth, an uncontrollable fury erupted inside me. My hand holding the knife squeezed tightly, and I had to plunge the blade into the cutting board to keep from doing something crazy. The blade sank deep into the wood, like the hatred piercing my heart. I didn't sleep that night. When I was sure the whole house was asleep, I sat in front of my old computer. The dim light of the screen illuminated my expressionless face. I created a new folder on the desktop and typed each letter firmly, the truth. I carefully downloaded all the files David had sent to Olivia. The photos from the supermarket and the hotel, the video in the car, and the recording from that day. I organized them chronologically, creating a complete story of betrayal. Each click was a step closer to Judgment Day. The stage was set, the evidence complete. Only a special occasion was missing, a room full of witnesses for the curtain to rise. And I knew Christmas was approaching. The festive spirit was felt everywhere. Joyful melodies came from neighboring houses. Lights shone on every street. But in my house, in my heart, there was only an icy winter. I went with Cassandra to the Christmas market. She was euphoric, running from one stall to another, choosing the most expensive ornaments. She picked a crystal reindeer sleigh, a set of golden bells, and I had to smile and nod, knowing she was probably paying for it with money earned from my son's sweat, from some special bonus or an invented scholarship. When she chose a huge star with sparkling stones to put on top of the tree, she turned and took my arm, her voice honeyed. "It has to look beautiful, Mom, because our family deserves the best." I only nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, honey, the best." I thought silently, and I knew that the truth was the best thing this family needed. I decorated the tree with Robert. It had been years since we had done that together. He hung shiny spheres on the branches. Then, suddenly, he hugged me from behind, a gesture he hadn't made in a long time. His arms were no longer warm. They only made me feel suffocated. "We had a wonderful year, didn't we, love?" he whispered in my ear. I remained rigid in his embrace. The smell of his shirt hit me hard, a sweet, unknown perfume that wasn't the one I used to buy him. I barely nodded without saying anything and gently removed his arm with the excuse that I had to prepare dinner. Lily was the only light in those dark days. She was completely immersed in the magic of Christmas. She excitedly wrote her letter to Santa Claus, carefully choosing each word, asking me to review it to see if it was polite enough. She sang carols in such a clear voice that it was the only sound in that house not tainted by falsehood. Looking at her, seeing the purity and faith in her eyes, I knew I had to do this. I had to clean up all this mess to protect my granddaughter's future from so much poisonous lies. She deserved to grow up with the truth. The afternoon before Christmas Eve, Olivia came over under the pretext of helping me prepare dinner. We went into the kitchen. The sound of the knife and running water was the perfect curtain for our conversation. While pretending to cut vegetables, she discreetly handed me a bright red USB stick, standing out like a drop of blood. "Here's everything," Olivia murmured without looking at me, concentrating on the carrot on the board. I asked a friend to edit it. We only left the strongest moments. The video in the car, followed immediately by the recording in the restaurant. It won't last more than 3 minutes, but it will be enough to destroy them. I squeezed the USB stick tightly in my hand. The metallic casing was icy cold, but it transmitted a strange strength. It was my weapon, the sword of truth. "Thank you, child," I also whispered in response. That evening, guests began to arrive. Family, close friends, people who had accompanied my family since its beginnings. Everyone came with gifts and good wishes, the house filled with laughter, toasts, and soft Christmas music. Robert and Cassandra played the role of perfect hosts. They went from table to table, hand in hand, toasting with everyone, receiving compliments on their happy home, on their professional success. I sat in a corner, observing everything in silence. I saw Michael look at his wife with infinite tenderness and pride as she gracefully conversed with the guests. I saw Robert, in an instant when no one noticed, place his hand on Cassandra's waist with a possessive gesture. Their performance was perfect. So perfect, it was repulsive. I approached the large TV in the living room. Michael had already prepared a blue USB stick full of family photos, trips, moments, Lily's birthdays. I smiled at my son and took out the blue USB stick. Then, while everyone was talking, not paying attention to me, I took the red USB stick from my coat pocket. My hand didn't tremble. I connected it with determination to the TV port. When I finished, I returned to the table and sat in my place opposite Olivia. She looked at me with eyes full of unspoken words. Then she nodded gently with a discreet but powerful gesture. I raised my glass and took a sip. Everything was ready. The actors were in their roles. The audience was complete. The storm was just waiting for a press of the remote control. And tonight, I would be the one to press that button. In the midst of that festive atmosphere, Robert stood up. He held a glass of red wine and tapped it gently to get attention. When the room fell silent, he began a speech full of feigned emotion, in a warm and solemn voice. "Thank you all, friends, loved ones, for being here celebrating with our family on this very special Christmas night." He gazed around the room and paused at me, smiling. "Looking at this place, I feel fortunate. I have a loyal wife who has been by my side through every difficult moment. A wonderful family, especially Michael and Cassandra. They are my pride. Seeing them happy makes me feel that I have fulfilled my duty as a father." Cassandra smiled shyly and leaned on Michael's shoulder. My son gently squeezed her hand, his eyes full of pride. Robert raised his glass higher. "So I want us to toast together, to family, to trust, and to love that will always keep us united." Everyone stood up joyfully, raising their glasses. The cry, "To family," resonated throughout the room. That was the moment I had been waiting for. The climax of the lie. When everyone sat back down, I also stood up calmly. I smiled with a strange serenity. "Thank you for your words, Robert. And taking advantage of this occasion, I would also like to show a little video. Consider it my special Christmas gift for everyone." Everyone applauded, thinking it was the commemorative video Michael usually prepared every year. My son looked at me with warm, grateful eyes. Cassandra and Robert also smiled, suspecting nothing. They were lost in the false radiance they had built themselves, unaware that the scythe of death already grazed their necks. I took the remote control from the table. My thumb trembled slightly as it hovered over the play button. Then I pressed it. The TV screen lit up. The first few seconds were completely silent. Only a car driving on a lonely rural road was visible. Some guests began to whisper, perhaps thinking I had chosen the wrong file. Michael frowned, looking at me with a slightly confused face. Then Robert's voice boomed clear and strong in the sudden silence of the living room. "As long as that old hag stays as dumb as she is now, you'll still be my princess." The whole room fell silent. Even the soft Christmas music seemed to stop. More than 30 pairs of eyes turned at the same time, stunned, looking from the screen to Robert and then to me. Robert's face went white as a sheet of paper. On the screen, Cassandra giggled, leaning her head on his shoulder. The entire disgusting scene in the back seat, those repulsive gestures right where his daughter used to sit, was displayed for everyone. I heard someone gasp. The crash of a glass breaking shattered the silence. Robert had dropped his wine glass. The red wine splattered across the snow-white tablecloth, leaving stains that looked like fresh drops of blood. The video abruptly changed scenes. The screen went dark, but the sound from the Conquistador restaurant began to play, amplified by the TV speakers. Cassandra's voice was heard, clear, sharp, and mocking. I told Michael that the child needed an intensive mental development course. He transferred the money immediately, without asking a single question. Michael froze, his eyes fixed on the black screen, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then his own father's voice was heard, adding, with an arrogant and cruel tone, to Cassandra's humiliations, "Spend whatever you want, my love. That idiot works like a dog just for us to enjoy." Michael abruptly pushed his chair back. The chair fell backwards to the floor with a dry thud. He didn't collapse. He sprang to his feet, his eyes bloodshot, staring fixedly not at the screen, but at his wife and his father. A choked cry, full of pain and fury, burst from his chest like the roar of a wounded beast. Cassandra began to scream hysterically, pointing her finger at me, her beautiful face now contorted with fear. "It was her! She set me up! That's all fake! It's a setup by that old hag!" But no one believed her. The evidence was too clear, too raw. One of the guests, Michael's best friend, stood up. He didn't say a word. He walked straight to Robert and looked at him with absolute contempt. Then he turned, put his arm around Michael's shoulders, who was trembling, and helped him out of the living room. The party fell apart. People began to murmur, to point. Some hurried to say goodbye. Others didn't hide their curiosity amidst the chaos. I saw several people pull out their phones and record the scene. Cassandra crying, screaming, pleading with Robert, who remained standing there, motionless. That night, after the last guests, friends, family who were once close left amidst awkward glances and uncomfortable gestures, the house fell into a terrifying silence. The smell of turkey still lingered in the air. The Christmas tree still sparkled, but the festive spirit was dead. Only a mess remained. Overturned glasses, untouched plates, and a raw, icy truth. Olivia was the only one who wasn't in shock. She began to clean in silence. The sound of dishes being collected was the only thing that broke the heavy silence. Robert and Cassandra remained there, motionless, in the middle of the living room, like two abandoned statues. Finally, Robert moved. He approached me. His aged face now looked truly miserable, and his voice, devoid of all arrogance, only pleaded, "Margaret, we can talk." I didn't look at him. I just kept my gaze fixed on the wall in front of me, where our wedding photo from 40 years ago hung. My voice was as cold as ice, without a hint of emotion. "Take your things and get out of my house right now." "Margaret, please, get out," I interrupted him firmly. before I lose my temper." Cassandra, who had stopped crying, turned to fury. She gave me a look full of hatred and began to scream at me with the most venomous words she could find. But Olivia came out of the kitchen with her phone in her hand. She stood in front of me, directly confronting Cassandra, and said in an icy voice, "Shut up! Get out of here before I call the police for trespassing." The threat worked. Robert pulled Cassandra. They silently went upstairs to collect some personal belongings, careful not to make the slightest sound. 15 minutes later, they came down with 2 small suitcases. They passed by me without daring to look. The front door opened and closed behind them. A dry click resonated, marking the end of a dark chapter that lasted more than 40 years of my life. The next morning, Michael and I went together to the lawyer's office. My son looked haggard, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep, but in his gaze was a determination that commanded respect. We didn't cry or talk much during the drive. Standing before the lawyer, we simply placed the red USB stick on the table. He connected it to the computer, put on his headphones, and reviewed the content. His expression didn't change much, but his eyebrows furrowed slightly. When he finished, he looked up and told us firmly, "With this, we're going to win." The trial was quicker than I imagined. With the irrefutable evidence, Robert and Cassandra could not present any defense. All the joint assets that Robert and I had built during the marriage, including this house, were awarded in my favor, claiming that his betrayal had caused me irreparable emotional damage. Michael gained full custody of Lily. Cassandra, due to her history of deceit, is not allowed to approach the child without supervision. Days later, one of the guests at that party uploaded the scandal video to social media. It went viral at an impressive speed. Cassandra's company, to protect its image, issued a statement announcing her immediate dismissal. She lost her job, her husband, her daughter, and her reputation. She lost everything. When everything calmed down, I began collecting the things Robert had left. I found my old jewelry box with the pieces he gave me on each anniversary. Before, they were treasures. Now, they were just worthless proofs of a lie. I sold them all without hesitation. With that money, I rented a small space on a street corner in the neighborhood. I named it Rebirth. I finally fulfilled the dream I had postponed my whole life to take care of my family. Opening a flower shop, Michael healed his wounds little by little. The pain transformed him from a blindly devoted husband into a strong and dedicated father. He learned to be both father and mother at the same time. I often saw him sitting on the step, patiently braiding Lily's hair every morning. His large fingers were clumsy, but full of affection. Lily remained a cheerful child. Perhaps due to her young age, she didn't fully comprehend the events that had transpired. For her mom and grandpa had simply gone far away. She loved to run around in my flower shop, help me water the plants, and learn to wrap small bouquets of flowers. At the end of the day, she would gather the leftover fresh flowers, carefully wrap them in a newspaper sheet, and take them to give to elderly neighbors who lived alone. Olivia and David, my daughter's fiancé, got engaged. He is a good man, kind and sincere, who often comes to dinner at our house. He helps Michael fix things and plays with Lily. He brought with him a new, healthy energy for our family. One Sunday afternoon, we all gathered in the small backyard of the house to share a simple dinner. I saw Michael smile with his daughter. I saw Olivia and her fiancé holding hands happily, and I took a deep breath, feeling the scent of the earth, the roses, and the lavender in the garden. The ashes of betrayal were left behind, and on that land I once thought barren, the flowers of a new life, of a new family, blossomed. I once thought that silence was the way to keep a family together, that sacrifice was a woman's duty. But after everything, I understood. No love is worth it if it is built on betrayal. Don't wait for someone to come and save you from hell when you can open the door and walk out yourself. Don't fear the truth, because it is the truth that illuminates the path to freedom and dignity. Women, regardless of age, deserve respect, sincere love, and have the right to raise their voices to demand justice for themselves and for those they love. I lost a false family, but I found myself, and I believe that exchange is worth everything. The story you have just heard has been modified in names and locations to protect the identity of those involved. We tell this not to judge, but with the hope that someone will listen and pause to reflect. How many mothers are silently enduring within their own homes? I truly wonder, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you choose to remain silent to maintain peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion on this story of painful tales, or any suggestions you have so we can improve our content. God always blesses, and I am sure that courage will lead us to better days. For now, on the final screen, I will leave you 2 of the channel's most beloved stories. I am sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.